I don't even know what city I'm in, to be honest. Is this Boston? Yes, cool. I knew that. I've been here before. Okay, so this is insane. I can't handle this. Maybe I don't. Maybe I should believe in myself. Is that what you're saying? Thanks, dude. Why don't I can't even turn this off? Okay. This is one of the more awkward Q&As I've been involved in, by the way. Usually they run really smoothly. Like there's a transition like in the credits and like the lights come up and I don't even know if you can see me. But anyway, this is a Q&A and how this works is you guys cue me and I A you. And that whole process starts now. And it's over. Thank you for coming. That's so awesome of you guys to stay. No, I'm serious. If you do have a question, you can ask it. But I'm not going to, the window, there's like 10 seconds. 9. Okay, go.
I'm just going to be awkward, and it's not a cue, but I lived in New Zealand in 2010, and I saw it when it first came out, and it was amazing. I've been dying to have it come to the US, and I'm so excited. So thank you. This is my all-time favorite movie, and I now do Maori research because of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it has been a while. It came out in 2010, and it's only, I don't even know what year it is, but it's a long time since then, and now it's here. So, yeah. Yes?
For the follow-up to that one, a friend of mine living in New Zealand has been talking about this movie since 2010. And, when I looked it up on the web, it looked like you got quite a enthusiastic response at Sundance. Could you talk about what was the challenge? Why was it so hard for you to go from Sundance to finally getting it released?
I guess it's just too cutting edge for the market. No, the film premiered in Sundance and it did incredibly well. It got very well reviewed and everyone loved it. They all fell in love with the film. But and there were a lot of distributors who were interested in the film, but the problem was they couldn't find a way to market it. They said, "Look, we love the film, we absolutely love it, but we just don't know how to market it. How do you market a film, in a recession especially, that is, has no stars? It's from a country that hardly anyone in America can locate on a map." And it's, a very distant story and it's like barely in English. So, so it's very hard, like off the bat seeing a beautiful film and then, it's like, as a salesman, how do you market that? When posters out there in the rest of the cinema, it's a guy fighting dragons and everyone knows what that film is without even knowing what the title is. It's, the movie where the guy kills dragons. And, this kind of film really is, it's a harder thing to sell to the masses. The other thing is that, I don't know if you've seen this other film, Whale Rider, which, this sort of gets compared to, and it's another New Zealand Māori film, and people would say, yeah, but Whale Rider did really well. But that was a very different time, like 5 or 6 years ago, it was very different to now. So then people had money, and we're like, I'm feeling a little rich right now. I can go and see a movie about poor people. It's different when no one's got any money. But also, since then, a lot of the independent film companies have all closed down. So Miramax is gone, Paramount Vantage is gone, Warner Independent is gone, Think Film, New Line, they're all gone. So, and not many people know that. They all closed down because there was no market for independent film. And so we made this film right in the middle of that crisis. And this saw a resurgence of 3D and giant blockbusters, and so that's the time we're living in. So really, that's why it's taken so long. So we're self-distributing the film now, and all that means really is that we cut out the middlemen and we just go to the theatres ourselves and work with a PR company to get screenings like this and to, so we don't have millions of dollars for posters and things like that. It's more relying on the old model of word of mouth, of people, audiences liking the film and then going and telling people about it. If it's on Facebook or if it's on Twitter, or actually like talking to another human face. If people still do that, then that's sort of what we rely on. And it used to work, a while ago, and before people, like nowadays, Hollywood films, most Hollywood films, you have the budget of the film. Let's say it's $20 million. Nowadays, you will spend up to $20 million just to advertise the film. So your budget is doubled just to get the film into the theatres. And we think that's stupid. So we're not doing it. Yes?
Could you speak a little bit about your thought process for writing the film and how it came about? I was not in New Zealand, and I didn't see it in 2010.
What? I don't want to talk to you.
Sorry.
Okay, so the film, it's based on a short film that I made a while ago, and I made that in like 2004, and it did really well. And I wasn't really planning on being a filmmaker, but it did very well. And then, as a result, I was encouraged to like write more stuff and to make films, and have that as my job. And so I accepted, and I wrote my first feature, which was this. And I took this feature, the script, to the Sundance Filmmakers Lab and workshopped it there. And then I put it aside and I went and made it Eagle versus Shark, and that came out here in 2007. And that was the last time I was in Boston. And that I took, I guess, a year and a half away from this script. Then I came back to it and I wrote on it for 9 months, and then we started shooting. And really it's just a sort of inspired by this short film, which is about a couple of 10-year-old kids who meet outside a pub in the middle of nowhere, and it's just about them like connecting and getting on. Yes?
2 questions. One, how did you choose the children that played the roles in the film?
Chat room.
The second one is the living conditions that were portrayed in the film, to what extent do they really portray the living conditions of the indigenous people?
I think pretty closely. That's my hometown. I grew up there. So that's the house I grew up in. It's my grandmother's house. I went to that school, and I grew up in the 80s, so we tried to make it as authentic to the 80s as possible. It really hasn't changed. We didn't have to do much art department in the town, so the conditions are still very similar. It was a pretty cool time to grow up in the 80s. It was a very, I don't know, it was just like a very innocent time, and especially for New Zealand, I think that the 80s was sort of like our coming of age decade, really. It was like when we were sort of finding our identity and stumbling around, and being very awkward in the world. And yeah, I mean, I really love that period of New Zealand's history, just because we were really like finding ourselves. We had like this commercial in 1980 on TV, and it was a guy that he's driving his car, and he pulls up outside the store, and he gets out of his car and he goes in the store, and then he comes out and his car's gone. He's like, "What?" And then across the screen it says, "Don't leave your keys in the car." Okay, it was an ad. And so yeah, you had to advertise to like not be trusting.
Not all cars start with a spoon.
What's that?
Not all cars start with a spoon.
Oh yeah, a lot of our cars started with spoons. A lot of cars here start with spoons. You haven't tried. And
How did you choose the children who played the roles?
we found them locally, just in child markets. And we really I was looking for kids that were going to be very similar to the characters I'd written. So the casting really was just like finding Boy, finding Rocky, finding those characters, and then all they would have to do really is just turn the camera on and they would be themselves and just give them the lines, and it worked because they were really good. And James, who plays Boy, we actually only found him about 3 days before we started shooting. Well, I don't recommend doing that. It's just that I cast another kid about 9 months before, and he was really amazing. He was a great actor, and he was, was very engaging. But then by the time we got around to rehearsing for the film, 8 months later, he'd sort of grown up, and had hit adolescence, and he was as tall as me, and his moustache as big as mine, and he was just not really right for the role. So I fired him, and then I auditioned James, and he was great. James was just, I threw him in there, and he was really enthusiastic. And 2 days into the shooting, he was saying things like, "I cut everyone. It just, it doesn't feel real." Yeah. And the other kid sadly went off, and he got on drugs, and he's in jail. No, he played the bully. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. That kid's fine. There's nothing wrong with the children. They're all fine. Keep your minds out of the gutter. Yes.
Oh, the music is really great in the film. Did you have advice, or are they just pieces you like? Can you talk about the music a bit?
Yes, I can. The music is a blend of old Maori show band tunes from like the 50s and 60s that we grew up with, and a band from Wellington, good friends of mine, called the Phoenix Foundation, who did music on my other films, and they did the score for the film, and then they would like blend the score into these old songs, and then maybe they'd re-record some of the old stuff as well if the quality wasn't so good. But yeah, it's all New Zealand stuff except for past the Dutch.
Yeah. And who choreographed the Michael Jackson, like, kapahaka kind of crossover stuff?
That was a friend of mine, Delina. She's really cool. You'd like her. Yeah, and so the thing with the haka at the end, I don't know how many of you guys know about that dance at the end, where we have, traditionally we have like all these songs that have actions with them, and they're called haka. And traditionally you would do that as to issue a challenge towards someone who I guess you're intending to kill. And now they like do it in rugby games, and there's probably like, there's one very famous haka which is done in New Zealand rugby games. But there are many other hakas. They all come from different tribal areas, and you grow up as a kid learning these things, learning hakas, and then you to make it interesting, you'd mash it up with like Michael Jackson dance moves, or like break dancing had just come out at the time, so you'd be doing that, and and so the reason it's at the end of the film in Maori culture, if you do a speech, or if you like have something important to say in a public forum, you are culturally obliged to follow that up with a song. So it doesn't mean, if you have the balls to stand up in front of people and talk, then you should also have the balls to sing a song at the end of that. And you can't get out of that. You have to sing. So yes, you should really have something to say. And it doesn't apply to Q&As. So it's really sort of like the song at the end of our. It's told you, doesn't it? I don't have anything interesting to say.
Are you trying this film all over the U.S.?
Yes, so the film opened a month ago at the Angelica in New York, and it's still there, and then LA, and then San Francisco, Seattle, DC, here, then Philly, Atlanta, Portland, lots of other places. But and so the general idea is you roll out the film little by little, trying to get word of mouth going, and really that's where you guys come in. And if you did like the film, it'd be great if you told people to come and see it. It opens Friday.
Yes, Friday, the 30th.
Whereabouts?
Right here.
Perfect. Don't tell anyone in here about it. People out there need to know.
So the filmmaker thing's going to stick, because you didn't plan to stop the filmmaker again, so.
For a bit longer, yeah. Just need to make a couple more million.
Project plan.
What?
Another project plan.
Yeah, my next film is a vampire movie.
Not
Let's face it, what the world needs right now is a vampire movie. I think it's time.
I agree. But what about all the does the popularity of some New Zealand being on the map in some ways helpful in terms of funding or publicity for you? I'm thinking, well.
For me, personally?
Well, not.
Nah.
New Zealand doesn't have the clout that in film.
No.
Really?
No, New Zealand has no clout in film, I think. We make probably about 7 films a year, and maybe 2 are like good.
They put themselves on the map with a good television show.
Yeah, I worked on that show.
I know you did.
They don't. I'm trying to get my profile up.
Oh, sorry.
You can tell.
How long did it take you to film on location?
8 weeks.
Good show. You haven't seen it, right?
Oh yeah, Flight of the Conchords is a show that I wrote and directed on that show, and yeah, it's a really great show. You should see that no longer exists. Yeah, 8 weeks, which is 2 months in New Zealand. I don't know what it is here. Don't know what the conversion is. It's something wonky, I bet. You guys have got wonky measures over here. It's all like, it's like 67.444 ounces to a kilo. It's like, you're just making up random numbers with your guys' measurements. What's a mile? I mean, a mile.
It's all right, we measure in smooth too.
What's that?
Oh, no, don't. Oh.
You're going to have to project if you want me to hear that. All right, hey, well, listen. This is the end of this very strange Q&A. This is probably the weirdest Q&A I've ever had in my life. But I really appreciate you. What?
The light over here, so we can actually see the really can't see it.
Well, you know, I'll probably be wandering around out there. I'm not just going to like walk into the light when you tell me. You're not the director. I'm the director. You walk into the light. More energy. Yeah. Okay, so this is so weird. I feel very awkward here. But yes, thanks so much. I'll be out there where it's a little bit more light. And yeah, thanks for staying, and cheers, thanks. That's one together.
Yeah.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
Awesome. Cool.
So, do you love E.T. as much as your character in the movie does?
I do. I've seen it like 10 times
when I saw the quote, I was just like, oh, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's strange. Like, I think the parallel in this with the stories really came after I'd written it. Like, I think like later on, I worked out, oh wow, this movie is basically E.T. It's like the dad is like this kind of weird alien who crash lands in the town, and like, only the kids can see him. And then we did shoot a version where he like left at the end. And, like it was like we had shot a different ending where he had gone. I was like, man, I just basically ripped off E.T.
No, E.T. was nice.
E.T. was a nice guy. Yeah, well, so like, but then in this one, Rocky was E.T. He was healing people.
What made you go with this ending at the end of the day?
Just, it's more helpful. I mean, hopeful. It just felt like the kids have been through so much, and then you know to like have like their dad like just leave and go, oh, I'm a loser, I'm gonna leave, and then like you know, then the kids are like, wow, we're back where we started. Felt a little bit like maybe just too much of a bummer. Because you know the kids have been through a lot, and I think, I mean, the most important thing really for me is that it's not really the relationship between the kids and the dad, you know, and how awesome that could be. It's more that the two brothers really like found the connection, like rekindled their, you know, their bond, and you know, and I think together they will get through anything. You know, it doesn't matter if the dad's there or not. Like I think looking after each other, they can move forward into a more hopeful and brighter future. I think just having the dad there at least makes us feel, okay, he's at least going to make somewhat of an effort, and you know, it's not all packaged up at the end. It's like, hey, we're all happy. It's like, okay, now we can like start to like be real and, you know, properly communicate with each other.
How was Japan's an awesome closing line? So
Oh yeah.
beautifully.
Yeah, actually, no, I think that just came while we were shooting, even maybe. I can't remember. Yeah, that was a late edition. That one.
Right.
Yeah.
So this happened, took place in the 80s, I'm guessing?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not autobiographical. It's all like made up. It's a fictional narrative set against a very authentic and autobiographical background. So that's my hometown, and that's exactly what it looked like in the 80s when I was growing up, and that's what all the kids were wearing, what the music we were listening to. I went to that school, and so I tried to make, you know, they say write what you know, and I tried to write the setting, you know, as close to what I know. And then, you know, I mean, I think, you know, it's a movie, you've got to make it more interesting and entertaining, so you've got to, you know, make these characters do crazy things and have, you know, you know, some of the more conventional things like the money and the drugs and the this and that, and the, you know, and like, so yeah, so that's and it is all set in the 80s, which is the greatest decade of all time.
Did you have a pet goat?
No, I had a pet calf.
Did
But
the
they
cat-
grow up very fast, so it's not a pet for long.
And then did you lose the calf, or?
Oh, the calf grew up and went off with the other cows. You know, it's just like when it was first born, I looked after a calf for for about a month or so, and you know, used to feed it. And, yeah, I mean, it was a farm. You know, I grew up on a farm, so it's like you did farm stuff when you were a kid. There was like 2 TV channels in the 80s, TV1 and TV2, and then we got our 3rd TV channel in 1993. And it's 2012, and I think we have like 6 New Zealand TV channels, and then the rest are like Sky, like Australia, like cable kind of style. Yeah.
And this is all being watched on a microwave, I assume.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, it's that classic thing. You know, a lot of people had to do it here as well. Like because out in the country, you get very bad reception, and so when shows are on, like, you know. Sometimes you'd have to send like a kid up onto the roof. So there'd be a kid on the roof like messing around with the aerial, and like people would be yelling and like, just hold it there, hold it, and, you know, and they had to like stay up there. And yeah, and then I can't remember when like the first VHS, like the first VCR came into town. I can't remember who had it, but it was like the most amazing thing ever. Because like to go and see the movies, like it was a 2-hour drive away. But like now and then people would drive through with like this sort of with a film print of some obscure film that they would, you know, that they'd play, and they'd just like set up a shitty projector, and then and so like I remember going down, we watched Love at First Bite, I think it's called. It's a vampire.
The Campy Vampire.
The Campy Vampire film. Yeah. And who's in that? The guy with the mole. What's that guy's name? From the 70s or 80s. Not Richard Carradine. No, it's
I can't recall.
He was big in the old days, but anyway, it was a comedy with him and this lady, and I think it was called Love at First Bite. And I distinctly remember seeing that film in a boat shed, and it was just a bunch of kids, like it was like sort of 30 or 40 of us and a few adults watching that movie on like a print being projected on like the back wall of this boat shed, and like that was just across the road from that little store that you see in the movie, in one of these little tiny boat sheds. And that was like a big deal for us.
Well, we're on the topic. I want to thank you for shooting on film. I know this was a few years ago, and it wasn't not quite as rare then as it is right now.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, yeah, we were shooting on Kodak, one of the last ones probably. So, which is such a shame, you know. Like I've got 2 films coming out. One is definitely going to be shot on HD, but then there's another one that I'm determined to shoot on film. but it's getting harder, you know. It's kind of crazy.
Is that even going to be possible? Are you going to be able to get some Kodaks off eBay or something? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like, I'll definitely shoot on Fuji, I guess, because Kodak's going to be impossible now. But yeah, it's like freaking me out because I'm watching like HD stuff and I really don't like it.
You're not alone.
Well, we saw it on film last night.
God, it just looks, and I feel like it still looks good, you know. This HD stuff, well, it ruins the way everyone looks. I mean, even just watching stuff on TV now, it's insane. Like, you can see, everything looks like a really bad Colombian soap opera. So, like, the way that you can see everything, it looks like like really just, you can see too much information, and it really screws the whole magic of cinema.
Well, I don't mean to panic you, but the first press screening we saw, it was off a disc that skipped.
Blu-ray.
Yeah. So we were literally missing small portions of the film, so then, you see it last night.
I saw it last night, I was like, the bruise on her eye when he looks across the car, I was like, oh, I didn't see that on a digital
I've seen a completely better movie. And we loved it the first time.
That's good to know that disc is skipping. I'm going to find out. Okay.
Well, I think the theater it's opening.
Yeah, the theater's not. I don't.
Is
think
luckily
the
playing it on film.
Yeah, that's good.
That's not going to be an issue.
Yeah,
but very excited when we saw it was on film last night.
Yeah. Where did the stoner quote come from? Laugh at nothing, cry at everything.
Oh, you know what? I was fortunate enough to make that up.
That was
yeah,
I love it. I love that quote.
I felt very pleased with myself when I wrote that line. I was like, oh, this is one of those lines that like.
Yeah, pat on the back.
Actually, like, makes sense. It sounds good. I don't think any kid would ever say that. But actually, no, I feel like sometimes kids do come up with things like that.
Yeah.
They're just, sometimes when you see it in a movie, you're like, kids don't say that. But yeah, no, I'm glad that you picked up on that one.
Were the kid actors hard to work with or easy? Did you got
they were actually pretty easy. Sometimes, some of them. Like the kid who played Rocky was 7, and I don't know if you know many 7-year-olds, but they get distracted, and they're like, if a 7-year-old is being a true 7-year-old, then which like 99% of 7-year-olds are, then they're very hard to work with. I think people go, oh, I found a 6-year-old who's an incredible actor, and it's like those people are freaks. Those are the ones that come along very rarely. So Rocky, the amazing thing about Rocky is that what you see on the screen is, well, it's literally the frames that we could use, because he was like wandering off and distracted and looking at the camera and throwing stuff at the camera, and then and often I'd be operating the camera and I'd be sort of like, I'd be like looking through the eyepiece and I'd be like saying, okay, look at my hand, look at my hand, look at my hand, look at my, look over here, look over here, look over here, okay, good. Now say the line. I look back at my hand, good, and that's directing him like that, and he'd say the line. But then on film, he steals every scene, and you're like, this kid's an amazing actor. He's so deep. He's got something going on. He's just like so, and he's not. He's a little shit. He don't write it. He was amazing. But that's the thing. That's the kind of thing, I guess, about cinema is like, there's a lot of things when you watch the movie you don't realize, that, someone's like holding Brad Pitt's like ass, like in place or something, when they're doing a certain scene or something, and but the audience wouldn't know, and you wouldn't, and that's. I guess the point is, you're serving the audience the entire time, and you're making sure that they are aware that the story is the most important thing, and really it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you have the components to present your film. But yeah, Rocky was amazing. He worked out pretty early on that if he wanted, he could stop an entire shoot. Walking away and playing war down by the beach. Yeah.
Last night you said there were only 6 movies coming out of New Zealand. What's the New Zealand Film Commission like?
They're fine. They are. There's nothing wrong with them. Anything else? Because they're the only way of getting money for a film in New Zealand, so I can not even say anything. But it's like working with a mafia. They're pretty cool. No, they're a government agency, so like they control. It's a taxpayer system. So part of the taxpayer's dollar goes to the Film Commission, and they are charged with finding scripts, developing talent, funding features and short films, and just running the film industry in New Zealand. So it's a tough job to start, and they don't always get it right. The cool thing about using their money is that you get final cut, you get your content. So it's a very good system like that, and it's relatively easy to get the money if you have things in place and if you have a good script. The hard thing is if they don't, because every 2 years they replace their development team. So if you have a script in development for 3 years, you're going to get a brand new development team coming in, and they're going to look at your script and reassess it and be like, why didn't this get made in the last 2 years? And then you go through a whole new set of notes according to new development teams' take on your script. And so I know people who have had scripts in development for 7 years, without making anything. So you can get caught in this trap, this cycle of development. So that's the one huge drawback of the commission.
So, you've been working on this movie for a long time, but you made Eagle vs. Shark in the meantime. Was that related to the Film Commission, or was that personal choice?
Well, so 2005 was a very good year. So I made Two Cars One Night the year before. It went to the Oscars in 2005. I had workshopped the script for Boy in January of 2005 at the Sundance Writers Lab. I thought, I really don't want to work with children on my first film, but also I cared too much about the story to screw it up. Short filmmakers don't always make the best feature filmmakers. It's just like short story makers don't make the best novelists. And so I wanted to make sure that I knew I could learn how to make a feature first, and do it with something that could handle the bumps and be something that I could experiment on. And that it wouldn't matter too much if I screwed it up. I could have fun doing it. And so I got all my theatre buddies, and I got Jermaine, and I got all people I knew and who I could have fun with. And then we made Eagle vs. Shark. So I put the script for Boy aside, and then made Eagle vs. Shark. And then a year and a half later, having learned everything on that first feature and putting it out, and then came back to Boy and wrote for 9 months, and then made it. 2009.
On the lines of directing, you once said in an interview that directing is about having an instinct and knowing what you want. Can you explain more about what you...
I said that.
Yeah. Can you,
oh, God.
Can you explain more what you mean by that in terms of...
well, I think it all comes down, I think directors often are very lucky to have an audience of people who like their stuff, and what it really comes down to often is just personal taste and the decisions that you make in any given moment. So, my take on Boy and Jim Jarmusch's take on Boy would be completely different, and we both have an audience. We both have people who appreciate the kind of films that we make, and that really is just based on instinct and the decisions that you make, when you're presented with, options. Because film is a complete series of, making a feature is a complete series of just compromises and trying not to compromise, but knowing you have to compromise a lot. And, it's like, I wanted the car to be, red and it's blue, and can I accept that? Is that going to mess with my vision too much? No, it's not. I'll accept the blue car, but then I'm not going to accept that the flowers are white. I wanted the red flowers because they represent, so you're constantly trying to fight against all these things, and you're I wanted the kid to be 6 foot tall and he's 5 foot, So you're battling with that all the time, and then all of your ideas are being reinterpreted by all the different people in the crew, all the HODs. So the wardrobe, there's some wardrobe choices to go with that. And so you constantly your vision is threatened all the time. And I think the skill in directing is picking your battles and knowing when to really fight for something, but also, and then recognizing also that a lot of these things don't mess with the heart of the core of the story and your original vision. And yeah, I mean, really like directing, because I never had any training in it. I was an actor for a long time, and I just watched people. When I did my first short, people were asking me stuff, and I had no idea what they were talking about. You know, like they were saying technical stuff to me. I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what a jib arm is. You know, things like that. And then like I went and of crew who know. Then someone will say, "Jib arms, I think about the yeah, well, he's a jib arm on this shot," and then